Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are in War Thunder and it is sales season, and what we're going to be covering in the next set of videos you're going to be seeing is the sales which are going to be coming for GE premiums specifically. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to go through all of the vehicles for each of the nations, and basically there'll be a video for each nation and their general GE sales. I'm pre-recording some of these because it takes ages going through them, and also on the week I'm actually very busy with some personal stuff. So if anything changes on the day of the sales, which I'm sure it won't since it hasn't in the past, but if it does, then I apologize. But there's not really a lot I can do about it. As always, if you are interested in purchasing anything when it comes to War Thunder, make sure to use my partner code in the description so you can support the channel, get discounts, and also get the decal. Let's get into it for the ground vehicles for America. Starting off, we have the M2A4 First Division. This is just a copy of the M2A4 that we see in the standard tech tree. It's a completely fine little vehicle to start with if you want to, and obviously half price is not too bad if you want to get into the tech tree. It's usually better to get the starter premium packs than the GE packs, or the GE vehicles, I should say, but this one's fine. You know, it's got a stabilized 37mm, good fire rate, good mobility, and a lot of machine guns just to have a bit of fun with it. It has 5 machine guns overall, which is just crazy to think about on a vehicle, but yeah. There's not too much to say about it, apart from it's just a little bit of fun, which is important. The next one is the Grant. Obviously, you have all of these, but these are either, you know, premium vehicles from packs or they're from other areas. The Grant 1 is a vehicle which I feel like is quite fun. You know, it is an M3 Lee with the different turret on it. It still has the 37mm M5 cannon and also the 75. I used to not really enjoy this thing just because its armor wasn't very good and generally it just didn't function very well. But nowadays, especially with a lot of vehicles being put up in BR, it actually fits pretty nicely, especially with the 75mm M2 cannon, which has access to the M61 shot, which got buffed about a year ago or so. The 37mm as well has good penetration on the gun and also a good fire rate on it. So overall, this vehicle actually works really well and is pretty nice. The armor, you can't, you know, stand up to anything too much, especially if they know where to shoot you, but the idea is even if you get shot in the Grants, you should be able to fire back with one of the guns, which is quite fun. I feel like there are better premiums, such as the Canadian Stuart, but also at the same time, this one is a bit of fun, which I feel like is quite important. The next vehicle is a Canadian M4A5 Ram. So this is a mixture of some different ideas, obviously the Sherman and British ideals. You have the 57mm 6-pounder gun, which is fine for penetration, but post-pen damage, probably not the best at the BR. It doesn't also have access... Oh no, it does actually have the vertical stabilizer, sorry, so it can fire when it comes to a stop. It does have good gun depression, and also it has some interesting armor on it. A lot of vehicles with good firepower and penetration did get moved down in BR, weakening this vehicle, but it still works very well because it has a lot of awkward angles on it, which people don't really know where to shoot. You can see the armor here, for example, and then also the armor here and the armor here. There's a lot of areas that people can screw up shots on. It is rank 2 though, so you can't get all the dailies and stuff done, which kind of sucks. But apart from that, you know, it's generally alright as a vehicle. Its bigger, chunkier brother is the T14, which is sat here, the thick boy Baracus of the Sherman family. And this vehicle is rank 3 and its bash rating 4.7. I would say this is a very situational vehicle. It's one of those that got put up in BR because it was pretty broken after the volumetric shell changes, because it has a really weird set of armor on it, which is a lot thicker than a lot of people would actually think about, especially on the sides where it just has all of these weird oddities which stop a lot of rounds. It still has this kill shot here though, the 87mm one, but it's harder to pen sometimes, especially from the front. So for me, when it comes to this vehicle, it's still good in a down tier. It's fine at its tier. The issue, of course, is the up tier, which I suppose they did actually put up a lot of its Predators recently, so it might actually be in a better position again. Has the stabilized 75mm, the M3 cannon, so it has the M61 shot, which is a fantastic one, and also a 50 cal. just to improve it too, which just gives it a little bit more of a boost. The next vehicle is a really nice one, and that is the Black Cat. So the Black Cat, as a vehicle, you can see here, I use it heavily with a lot of bushes because it's super fun. The vehicle itself is very similar to the standard Hellcat that you have in the tech tree. The 76mm cannon doesn't have the muzzle brake, and it also doesn't have access to the armor plates on the tracks. That's pretty much it. The mobility is there, the scouting is there, the 50 cal is there, and the power from the 76mm at 5.7 is completely fine for the vehicle. It's one of those that I use in a lineup which is geared towards doing events because it's super fun to do. So for me, this is kind of, you know, a vehicle to look at and a vehicle to focus on, which is awesome. So this one's really fun. If you enjoy, you know, the 5.7 lineup for America, which is super strong, by the way, you know, you have the M4A376, the actual Hellcat Standard, the Jumbo nowadays, and also the M36B2, which is a very underrated tank destroyer with its very good gun. You also have great, you know, support from the as well, with stuff like the P-51s, P-47s, and also, of course, the Corsairs, even if you don't have any of the premiums. So the Black Cat's really good, and also it's one of those at rank 3 that you can do dailies and specials in all the time. Then you have the Calliope. Now, the Calliope is one of those that I suppose I would class it as a collector's item. It's not one of those which is, you know, a really good pickup because it's insanely expensive for what it is. You're basically paying on offer nearly 5,000 GE for a bunch of rockets on top of a standard Sherman, and that just isn't really good, right? The rockets are a little bit of fun, especially if you run into a lot of light targets. You know, the rockets themselves, the M8s are fine, they just don't pen a lot. And the gun itself, the 75, has the M61, so it's okay, but it loses the 50 cal, which kind of sucks. And also it has, you know, not great armor on the front of it because of these areas here. So the vehicle is enjoyable because of the rockets, but is it worth it when you have to pay 5,000 G for it, and you could get like 3 or 4 vehicles for that, which are equally as fun and interesting? No, of course it not, which is the major issue with this vehicle. Then you got the Super Hellcat. So the Super Hellcat's at rank 4 and also at 6.3. This is just a Hellcat with a bigger gun. And the other thing is that it also does get scouting as well, which is kind of surprising. But they did give it access to the light tank capabilities. So this one is also pretty fun. The 90mm M3 cannon is pretty good. It has the M82 shot on it, which pens most things, especially from the side, which is where you're going to be using this. The only issue with this vehicle is the fact that you have such a banger 6.7 lineup that, and also they moved up a bunch of 6.3s to 6.7 like the M26. There's not really a lot to do with the Super Hellcat, so it's one of those which has kind of just been left by itself. Like, for example, if you have a look at 6.7 America, you have the M26, T26E5, T26E1. You also have the T34 that's there, the M50, and the Scorpion, which is there, which is just kind of nuts. If you have a look at the 6.3 lineup, the T25, which many people believe is over Biard, the 76, which is in the same boat, the Bulldog, which isn't great, and then the M109, which is, well, we'll see how it goes. So the Hellcat, I feel like, is a really fun vehicle and works exceptionally well. You can also pair it with the P51H, which works really well in ground, but at the same time, it doesn't have as strong lineup as many others around the place, which is a bit of an issue. The next vehicle is the M26T99. Now, this one is another just standard vehicle which just has access to M8 rockets again, which makes it a premium. So the M26 did recently get a buff on its M82 shot. Has higher muzzle velocity, so it pens a little bit more, which is nice. I'm not a fan of the M26. I think it's probably one of the weakest 6.7s in the game, if not the weakest. And adding some rockets to it, I mean, once again, it's just a nice little thing, but it's going to overpressure some stuff, and then most of the time it's not going to do anything. So for me, it's just not really something to focus on, and once again, because it just has rockets on it, it means that it's crazy expensive. Which is just not worth it for me for the vehicle. So this, I would say, is once again a no-go just because of the price. And also, it doesn't really give you a very powerful vehicle, even at 6.7. The M46 Tiger, though, is one which is slightly better than it. This is just a standard M46 with a different camouflage. So it has the 90mm M3A1. The big difference between the M3 and the M3A1 is that this one gets access to a Heat FS shell, giving it increased penetration, which is quite nice. The M46 is one of those vehicles that's not very good until you get it spaded. Now, the great thing about the Premium is that it comes spaded, so you get all of the nice factors of it. It's good mobility, it's decent penetration on its gun, it's okay reload, it's 50 cal, and also it's okay armor. It's very much a jack of all trades, master of none vehicle, and works very well at 7.0 for it. They also up-tiered a few vehicles recently for America, so it does have a full-on lineup, which is quite nice. The T114 is another one which is quite pricey, but also at the same time is quite a nice vehicle too. If you have a look at this thing, the one thing that you'll kind of notice from it is, of course, the recoilless rifle on it and its auto-loading system. It has a 3.2 second reload for its first stage ammo stowage, and then it has to reload them. You only get technically 26 rounds in total, and it does take a while to kind of fill this, first stage ammo stowage. But overall, it's a fun vehicle, right? It's a nice one, and it works incredibly well at what it does, which is hiding it in corners and then also scouting everything and just shooting stuff with the high penetration of the heat round. So for what it is, it's really fun, and it fits pretty nicely around the place. It's just one of those which I feel like has to need a specific playstyle, but can be used very, very effectively. Then you have the T54E2, which isn't on sale because this vehicle, of course, has just come out. The T54E1 should be on sale, though, and this one is just a better T54E2 anyway. It has the oscillating turret, which gives it additional armor. It has the better reload because it has that autoloader. You can see the extra armor that it has here. And it also keeps the crew member, so this is just a better version of the one they just added at a slightly higher BR. So if you want to pick up one of them, just pick up this one. You'll get exactly the same experience. Good mobility, quite big though, decent armor, very good reload, and also 50 cal helps it quite a lot. Overall, for the 8.0 lineup for America, works very, very well. And then the last one, which is a G vehicle, is the M1128 Wolfpack. Now this is exactly the same as the one in the tech tree. The only difference is it has this camo net on it, which gives it some additional stuff on it, making it look slightly different. But even in its kind of naked state, it's a fun vehicle. The reason why is they buffed its reload like 3 times. They gave it M900. It has Gen 2 thermals, and also it has a laser rangefinder, scouting, and everything else you would want. It also has nobody in the turret, which basically means that if you are hull down, which you should be most of the time in this thing, using its mobility to get to areas where you're able to take advantage of that, you can just annihilate everything, and all they can do is take out your breach over and over again. It's crazy when you think about it. The vehicle is pretty tall though, so that is something to also take into account, but I've got to be honest, this is a really powerful vehicle when in the right hands, and also at the same time has a really good lineup around it as well. So for the aviation side of things for America, there's a ton of planes as well. Turns out there's a lot of premiums for America who could have seen that coming. The first one being Gala's F3, F2. I mean, this is a bit of fun to start with, but there are, of course, much better options going forward than just this vehicle. It's a nice one, but there are better things. It's pretty much as simple as that. It's got a 12.7, which is nice at 1.3. It's got good maneuverability, is able to have a bit of fun in arcade, but I feel like there's probably better options, such as the F2A1, the good old Thatchers, which is right here. It's got a cool skin. It's also got the yellow and silver camo, which is something that a lot of pre-World War II American vehicles have, and it also has 3 12.7s, which gives it quite a lot of firepower for the vehicle itself. 3 12.7s and then 1 7.62 definitely gives it a good hit, especially in arcade if that's what you're looking for. Also, it doesn't get any ground ordnance, which kind of sucks but at the same time, you know, it is kind of how it is. For a vehicle which is similar, but at rank 2, you have the Key 43-2. Now, this has pretty much no firepower, but at the same time is incredibly good at defensively flying, good at climbing, and then also it's one of those vehicles that it's very hard to actually destroy if played correctly, and also it just doesn't have enough firepower to finish off their targets. So really annoying plane to fight against, but also at the same time, it's one of those which if you know how to face it, it's not really going to do too much to you, because the HO-103 machine guns just don't really do a lot, even the 12.7 versions, so that is a bit of a problem with the vehicle. The Key 61-1B is slightly better, but once again, 37BR is pretty stacked for America, or around 37BR at least, so instead of playing this, I'm sure most people would actually just straight up go for a different vehicle in the form of the P-51s that start appearing at this level. It's a fine premium, you know, once again at rank 2, it's got decent rewards on it, and at the same time, is pretty cheap, but I feel like its use will be pretty limited because of its rank 2 nature. A vehicle which is crazy expensive and also finally has been moved up to rank 3 because it's been upped in BR a few times is the XP-55. This thing is nuts. There is no reason why this thing should have been as low BR as it was for the longest time, and also rank 2. At rank 3 it can do all the dailies at once and also all the specials and is really powerful. Has the engine in the back of it, which is quite fun, and also because of that, it means that shooting at it, you actually have to overlead, because a lot of people actually, you know, shoot for what is seen as the front of the vehicle, which would be this, so you actually have to fire over the target in order for it to run into it. It's kind of odd to think about, but yeah, it's something you have to deal with. And then it also has two 12.7s and two 20mm, which is really good for the vehicle, all centrally mounted, so super easy to, you know, shoot at people with. In air realistic or air arcade, this thing's a monster, but obviously in other game modes, it is something which isn't that useful because it doesn't really have any secondary usage. At the same time, you have the A6M2, which is here. This is just a copy of the Zero for America, and it's cheap once again. It's rank 3, so the dailies are good for it, but overall, I feel like there are better vehicles, and since there are so many Zeros in the Japanese tech tree, you could just play them there. Like, the American tech tree offers a very different playstyle to what this one does, so if you don't, I suppose, want to experience the American tech tree and you just want to kind of grind through it for some reason, then, you know, the A6 is a good pick, but why would you want to do that? It seems a little bit odd. Same with like the BF-109F4, right? The BF-109F4 is more similar to a lot of how American vehicles go, but it's also not a vehicle which is crazy powerful in its own way. It has one 20mm and one 7.92. Since it's a captured vehicle, it doesn't get any bombs or even extra gun pods or anything like that, so you're kind of stuck with what it has. That doesn't mean it's bad. It actually works very well with its limited munitions, but it's another one of these vehicles that is only really useful in air and not really useful in anything else, and that is, of course, a detriment. Then you have the XP50, which once again is another vehicle that went up in BR and should have done a very long time ago, this thing. And this is much cheaper than the XP55. It has an insane climb rate, which is why a lot of people like it, and also two 20mm and two 12.7s. This is definitely one of the better vehicles at the lower BRs for the Americans, and it is straight up because of the simple fact that it has good firepower, good rate of climb, and people just run into each other when it comes to stuff nowadays without even really thinking. So it's really powerful and really, really good, this one. Definitely worth a general pickup. The next vehicle is the BTD, which exists, which is also at rank 3, this one right here. I would actually say this one's worth it too. Once again, it does have a skin just like the other one. It has two 20mm. It's also technically labeled as a bomber, the Naval Aircraft Torpedo Bomber, so you can use this for a bunch of specials and dailies, and also Battle Pass challenges, which is really nice. And at the same time, you can carry two the armor-piercing bombs, or the mines, which have incredible explosive mass, or just one, you know, big old bomb, or of course you can bring 2 torpedoes if you want to on the vehicle. So it's one of those which is super useful in naval, and also has great use in ground and aviation, and can fend for itself in stuff like aviation. It's just an all-rounder, works really well, and if you're a person who doesn't really want to focus on kind of grinding the tech tree and want some cast support, this one definitely is up there. The next vehicle, which is pseudo like that, but nowhere near as good, is the Grizzly, the XA-38. This is basically a twin-engine vehicle where they've strapped a 75mm from a tank on it, and you can see it right here. This means that it does have access to some pretty meaty shells. You know, it does get APT, that pens quite a lot, and also it does get HEIT as well, which doesn't, but can overpressure stuff at a funny rate. It also gets some 12.7mm backing it up, and also some guns to defend it too. But I gotta be honest with you, this isn't a vehicle that's ever going to really take over the game. It's never going to be crazy good. It does actually get bombs now, which is something it never used to, so it at least has a use, but there are just so many better ones at what it does, especially at the BR that it's at. Like, you start running into all of the superiority fighters for America, which actually have access to a really good set of they have access to a really good set of bombs on them, and then also play the superiority role. Another plane which has been in the game for a very long time is the Focke-Wulf 190A8. This is just the red one, which was tested after the war. It's a vehicle which has never really fit anything. It just has a nice camo, that's pretty much it. Everything else about it is pretty weak. It's not meta, doesn't fit anywhere, and overall just isn't a very good plane. Like, I don't know how else to put it. The Spitfire, though, which is also at around these BRs, is very good. This is the LF Mark 9C for America. Has access to the Merlin 66, which is what makes the Mark 9 very powerful. It can actually bring bombs now as well, so can be used in ground forces, and has the Hispanos and the Brownings, which work very well in tandem. Super good defensive fighter, really good rate of climb on it, as you can see, and then also does have access to a bunch of camos that you can grind out, which personally I think is actually really cool, and I always enjoy stuff like that. You know, you don't just have to have the, you know, American camos if you don't want. You can also have some British camos on it if you feel like it too, so that's quite nice. I would say this one's a really good pick if you like aerialistic, and for ground, it's actually not too bad as an superiority fighter with the opportunity to drop a 250 as well. Then you have the 2 F-89s, so these two right here. The F-89 is fine. Like, it's a vehicle which I feel like has been under-BR'd for the longest time. I know a lot of other people feel exactly the same, and the reason is because it's insanely quick for what it does, and has access to, of course, the 20mm in the front. If played correctly, this thing cannot be touched with its afterburning engines, and it can just get into crazy positions and annihilate stuff. It's very much like the Su-11 in that way, where its speed is just better than anything else it'll face, so you can actually take control of the battlefield, which is, you know, really useful in this type of vehicle. The other one, the F-89D, which you have to buy the F-89 before you get the F-89D. The difference is this one has access to the different Mighty Mouses. The standard Mighty Mouse, which is this one with the heat warhead, these ones are actually kind of VT, so they or proximity fuse, I should say. They have a proximity fuse as a head, so all you got to do is fire the rockets near a target and it'll explode them. And this actually can work really well for the vehicle, surprisingly enough, and also you can bring along more if you want to in a ground sense. It's a fun vehicle and different and unique, and also you can engage people from longer ranges, which is pretty cool too. So you don't see a lot of these compared to the standard F-89 because it's a bit harder to play, but at the same time, they're both very good. Then you got the A2D. This vehicle is fine as well. It went up in BR a bunch because basically people were using it as a bomb truck, something that hopefully the Wyvern can eventually do. But you can see here that it can get access to a pretty decent bomb load if you want to. You know, stuff like the 2000s, the 500s, the 250s. You can use this as a bomb truck in realistic or ground realistic. Can't really use it in Air Arcade anymore because they bumped its BR up to a ridiculous one because people were going to space in it and basically just dropping bombs from there, grinding whole tech trees with it. So it's pretty decent at its job. It's just at a point where a lot of early jets will just annihilate it, so you have to, you know, go 45 degrees away from the battlefield and then go to bases after that. It's not bad though. So looking at the naval side of things, there are actually a bunch of really good premiums for the Americans. There's a ton of them in the coastal and blue water fleets, but mainly the blue water stuff is the stuff to focus on. The Wellborn is, of course, the first one. This is just a copy of the Clemson class, the Litchfield. Don't bother with it. There are so many better options in the blue water tree. There's no point in this. This just gives you a bit of an artificial boost to get into like rank 2, where the destroyers actually get really good for America, so you don't have to worry about this. You'll be past this soon enough, and once you get to the Sumner and the Fletcher, you'll realize it's just, even though it's like a really cheap purchase, it's just a waste of time. The Wilkinson, though, is not. It's another one of these vehicles that has access to a bunch of pretty cool stuff on it. Basically, what you have is 2 single 127mm on the edges, and then also 2 dual sets of 3-inch guns. Now, the interesting thing about this vehicle is the fire director. You can see that the calculation time and the update time for it is super low. So that basically means that these 127s are incredibly accurate, and also they have a crazy fire rate on them. Even after the first stage, which is 80 rounds, the fire rate is still 27 rounds per minute. So instead of looking at this vehicle as one which only has 2 guns, look at it as if it had 4 or 6, because that's the fire rate on it, which is just nuts. It also has access to AP and HE and HEVT, and also torpedoes if you want to use them, and also an anti-submarine rocket launcher if you really feel like it, which is right here. But mainly this thing is insanely good because of just the fire rate on the guns. Even the 3-inch guns are just nuts, so you can really output damage super quickly with this vehicle. It is rank 2 though, so that kind of sucks. It would be nice if it wasn't. It would be nice if it was rank 3. But at rank 3, you also have 2 really good vehicles again, which is, of course, the Frank Knox, which is the gearing premium. You can see the gearing class in the tech tree, and then the Moffett, which is just the Porter class premium, which you can see here. So they're basically very similar copies to what we have in the tech tree. The Frank Knox has access to 3 dual-mounted 5-inch guns. Super great fire rate. These are easily the best destroyer guns in the game by far, which is what makes the Americans super strong in naval. In the destroyer area, they just have really good fire rates, as you can see, and also they have access to all the standard rounds, including a decent amount of armor penetration, so you can just, with ranging fire, keep firing over and over and over again. The Frank Knox also has good AA with the 40mm and the 20s, and also the torpedoes, so it's just an all-round package. The only thing it's missing is, well, kind of an extra gun, because you want to have that continuous fire rate, and with the Frank Knox, with its first stage, you can, but with the second stage, there's a little bit of a gap. So what do? Well, you pick up the Moffett instead, which has exactly that. With these 5-inch guns, which are slightly different, but the same fire rate, you can just keep firing. You don't have anything to actually stop you, and basically you can output the most damage out of any destroyer in the game. You're also at rank 3 like the Frank Knox, which means that of course you get access to the wonderful dailies and also specials that are available, and because it is a fleet premium, you just get some insanely high, you get some insanely high rewards. Even in just arcade, you can see 900% and also 462 for RP, so you can really grind through the tech tree super quick. This is ideal for doing events. This is ideal for doing dailies, specials, and everything. It has the torpedoes, it has the AA guns, but the main thing is it has 4 sets of dual 5 inches, which is just nuts. So this and the Frank Knox are insanely good pickups. Also, at the same time, you have another vehicle which is a really good pickup too, which is, of course, the Helena. The Helena has been a very strong premium for the longest time, and it isn't really a surprise that it continues to be a really strong premium. Rank 4, battle rating 6.0, it's a little bit high, but you still get access to a bunch of really nice stuff on it. The vehicle has the 5 triple 6-inch guns. You can see 3 on the front and also 2 on the back here. Basically, that means that, once again, you can just keep the fire rates. You can just keep firing over and over and over again. It doesn't worry about the first stage ammo stowage or anything like that. It's just able to do a ton of damage over time. It has good secondaries too, in the form of the 5-inch guns with the great fire rate, and also it has the 40mm and the 20s. The only thing this is worse than is, of course, like the Des Moines class, but the Des Moines class is higher BR. And as stuff gets decompressed, this thing is just going to become a monster again. Once they add in 7.3 Naval, which I'm sure is coming pretty soon with the addition of rank 6, that means that this will take over the game once again. So you can pick it up for a decent price and also really good rewards and just start hammering people with it. It's just the perfect vehicle to be able to research pretty much the whole tech tree with. It's just nuts, and you can see it can research everything apart from this right now. But that's just because of the recent addition of rank 6. For Coastal, you got the PT3. Not really worth it, if I'm honest with you. Once again, a very poor vehicle. Just very similar to the PT6. There's a reason why these are reserves. Even though they're cheap, there's just no point. The Car Me also is another one which doesn't really fit very well into the game. It's just a vehicle which has 2 3-inch guns, 1 on the front, 1 on the back, and 2 20s. There are a lot more boats which just have much more rapid fire guns, which do a lot more damage and also have a lot more armor at this BR. So it's just not worth it, really. Like, you can donk people with the 3 inches, which is nice, you know, with the HE or the AP or the VT, but overall, just not worth it. Better just to get through it. The PT-174 is not too bad. You know, it has access to the 40mm on the front and the torpedoes. This makes it pretty useful in a lot of circumstances, just because of the simple fact that it has access to, you know, the 40, which can range up to like 2 kilometers, and then also the torpedoes, which can help it out too. So I think that's a pretty solid pickup, even though it's only rank 2. You got a pretty good lineup around it. And then you got the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt is the one to go for. This is the one I actually use for naval tasks and also use for events. I have the 3.0 lineup with the other 2 vehicles, the PT boats at 3.0, and it's just really powerful. The reason it's powerful, and I know I've got a bunch of stuff on it, but is this here, the 20mm set of Orlicans, the quad on the back. It means that you can turn the booty to any vehicle in Coastal and just hammer them with the guns. It's really nice. And then for larger machines, you got the torpedoes, which is good too. And then you have some extra stuff as well. It's just a really, really nice vehicle. And the Dougie is also going to be on sale. This one is I'm just going to sit in my spawn and kill planes for a match. And that seems to be quite, you know, popular for a few people. I saw some people doing it in good old Air the other day, where they just sit in the spawn with SPAs and just donk stuff. Well, the Dougie can do that as well with the RAM 24A missiles. It has access to, of course, the fire director and also the tracking radar on it, so you can do that. You can just track planes in the air and then just hammer them with the missiles, which actually work really well. So yeah, it seems like a good plan if you like to do that. If you actually want to fight other naval vehicles, it's not really going to be able to do that. It's just going to get hammered. So there's a bunch of really good premiums for the Americans. I would honestly say the mid-tier destroyer premiums are probably the best value, like the Fort Knox, and then of course the Moffett, but there are still some really good ones with unique playstyles to at least have a look at. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.